Dr. Jaidev and I had been wandering in the interior forest areas day and night for several months, visiting tribal settlements. The tribes held Dr. Jaidev in great esteem. He was a well-known botanist. I was his assistant. We would always move about collecting samples of rare plants. Along with studying botany during these rounds, we would come in close contact with the lives of the tribal people. He had become accepted as a part of their families due to his benevolent attitude and a pleasant personality. Initially, I found interacting with these primitive people a bit difficult, but gradually I developed an affinity with them through their simple and warm behavior. The forest dwellers always helped us with our work. The hardy tribal people were helpful in collecting rare plant species. While examining certain varieties, Dr. Jaidev noticed some changes that had occurred in the plants. Also, we had begun to sense an atmosphere of fear developing among the tribal settlements. There was talk about a certain curse on their localities according to old customary beliefs. We were getting to the bottom of both these observations. We had the dual purpose of identifying the imminent danger that had gripped their minds and removing the fear resulting from their blind faith as we continued to study the noticeable but incomprehensible transformation in the world of plants. We had found some threads. We were continuing to collect further data, and Dr. Jaidev was researching it to arrive at some reasonable conclusions. He had been following it up for the past 10 years. The resulting inferences were accepted to revolutionize the study of botany. A big government project of the Defense Department had been developed in the past 4 decades in a remote, unknown part of the forest. This project included a research center related to creating atomic energy. The radiation leaking into the surroundings due to shortcomings of the project was damaging the environment on a large scale in that area. The secrecy surrounding the project had prevented the effects of radiation from being publicized. However, the slow but continuous exposure to radiation was causing huge internal changes in the plant life of the affected area. Constant observations and cross-checking with botanical references and principles led Dr. Jaidev to some shocking deductions. The emissions had led to the disappearance of internal moisture and secretions among the plants. The living essence of the plants seemed to have dried up. Although they appeared lush green externally, the trees and shrubs were withering from within. This was a mild but stopped transformation. Dr. Jaidev was studying the reaction of this process of change along with its likely effects. Some of the resulting differences were peculiar. All the trees, plants and creepers in the forest appeared to look like artificial specimens kept in a showcase. The diminishing nectar in the flowering plants had reduced the production of honey, leading to a depletion of the stock of honey. This change was going on for 2 or 3 decades. The vegetation had become toxic. Human beings may remain inactive due to shortage of resources. But how can busy organisms like bees remain idle just because they do not find the vital nectar in plants? The whole process of making honey constitutes their life cycle. A sudden natural calamity or a big accident could have wiped out the existence of the honeybees, But this slow, definite danger had gradually affected them badly. Their very resource needed for survival had disappeared. Then how had the tiny beings survived till date? Dr. Jaidev was puzzled. All living beings have been struggling for survival since creation. Mere stoppage of production of honey could not wipe out their race or curb their survival instinct. Searching for a substitute was the natural urge. But the alternative the bees found, it was deadly. Lone tribesmen in search of firewood in the forest would not return. The honeybees had selected human blood as a replacement for the sweet nectar from plants. Perhaps it started as a freak accident, but after taking a liking to this new food source, they faced another war with nature. Dr. Jaidev was living among them, trying to find a solution to this fatal threat. The poor tribesmen revered him like a god. He guided them on how to resist the bees. When I met him as a student of botany, I was impressed by his work and roamed the forest with him the whole year round. This helped me understand a lot of mysteries in nature. For an entire day and night, we were in search of our route. The forest was engulfed in the night air and was chilly. We camped in a clearing. I made a bed next to the campfire. The doctor wanted to make further observations. But I was in no condition to stand on my feet and immediately fell asleep on the ground after having walked for so long. I was awakened by the heat of the sun next morning, and I was surprised that I had remained asleep so late. Dr. Jaidev wasn't around. I noticed a note left by him. I started reading it. Dear Raghavendra, I have to go ahead for an important task. Last night I saw some shocking things. Something horrible has happened. Looks like I'll get to know very soon. I'm entrusting you with a big responsibility till then. Publish all the data we have gathered and the inferences we have drawn so far. Now, the world has to face a great hazard. Inform government agencies about our entire research. Send the details to all possible organizations. The Forest Department, Health Ministry, Defense Agencies, the PMO, and even the President's Office. You can take help from the newspapers. But before all this, leave the forest area immediately or there will be a disaster. Dr. Jaidev. As soon as I read the letter, my face turned pale. I began collecting the material out on the way to exit the forest. All alone was not at all easy. I combed the forest like a madman. Yet, I was unable to trace an escape route. Every night was tormenting. The food we had bought finished some days ago. I quelled my hunger with wild fruits and raw roots. My clothes were in tatters. Every now and then, I thought of Dr. Jaidev. The very thought of the task he had set for me disturbed me. Where might Dr. Jaidev be? I was dejected. He might even have reached outside the forest. But then, didn't he make any efforts to search for me? Or was he caught in some peril? Such thoughts ate away my sleep. And then, one day, I came across Dr. Jaidev in a strange condition. His clothes had almost disappeared. His entire body was covered with countless stings. But there wasn't a drop of blood. His dry skin stretched tautly over his bones. The face was covered with a thick cloth. When I removed it, I saw that it was Dr. Jaidev. For a long time, I kept staring at his lifeless face. The appearance of his body had altered to the point of becoming unrecognizable. Something horrible had happened. The body had countless minute pores as though pricked by needles. But the face had been saved from those injuries. Surprisingly, the face looked calm in spite of the 1,000 deep wounds on the body. In fact, there appeared a strange kind of joy on the doctor's face. His countenance displayed an eternal sense of satisfaction. It was all incomprehensible to me. I covered the face, which showed that odd sense of contentment. I couldn't bring myself to look at it. I found his observation book kept under a stone nearby. It had notes made up to the previous day. As I read them, the truth started unfolding before me. Ever since the honeybees had found their substitute for nectar, the forest dwellers had begun resisting them collectively. Dr. Jaidev had suggested several methods. The bees were then deprived of the nourishment. They rarely found an isolated human being for them to attack. Once again, there was a need for natural evolution. The poison in the sting of the bees was getting reduced. Their actual stinging hardly caused any pain. Over time, the bee sting became painless. So whenever they alighted on a person, they could suck the lifeblood out of human beings without hurting them. They continued buzzing about with the only difference that their food was now the tough bodies of the people of the forest instead of pollen grains of flowers. Once the species of their victim was selected, there were other transformations in the structure of the bees. In the absence of the toxin of their stings, a new but more destructive process was evolving. The stings now caused secretions which did not just make them painless, but actually turned them attractive. The human body had become more addicted to the secretions than the bees had to human blood. Though this craving was enjoyable for humans, it did lead to death. Bad company was not responsible for this addiction, nor could any careful upbringing hope to prevent a person from acquiring it. Children to old people all could fall prey to this addiction to the bee stings. Having discovered this, Dr. Jaidev had gone alone to tackle this problem, but in vain. Perhaps he thought he could withstand the predicted consequences. However, the bee stings built that very addiction in him, and he was willingly driven to get stung. It was just that he had already written the entire account of this condition in his observation book. That expression of happiness on his face, despite his wounds, was a proof that his conclusions about the bee stings had been true. He had appealed to me in his book to unravel before the world this imminent danger to humankind. The result of this hazard would become visible quite soon. Dr. Jaidev had earnestly taken up the responsibility of warning the world, and to me, I had not been able to fulfill my duty. I don't even remember how I emerged from the forest into the civilization. But it must have happened quite late. After the disappearance of Dr. Jaidev and me, search parties lost a lot of their members. Having concluded that all of us must have lost our lives in different accidents in the forest, the search was stopped. When I returned after a long period, They were happy to see me, but people were worried about the condition. Due to immense mental stress and physical suffering, my behavior and speech seemed to have become incoherent. I spoke angrily and even begged people. I warned every person I saw, but I was treated like a madman who keeps blubbering. It is said that I even speak in my sleep. Now I want to make one last effort before I actually become deranged. These days I remain silent, so the family is happy, but their joy will be short-lived. I am going to end this unbearable life. The other day, my 12-year-old granddaughter was reading a book. Though I called her many times, she did not respond. She seemed lost in a trance, and the expression on her face was remarkable. It suddenly reminded me of the look on Dr. Jaydev's face. On looking carefully, I saw a yellowish bee stuck like a leech on her neck. I rushed forward with all my might. I caught the bee in my fingers and crushed it. My granddaughter looked up, gently fondling the skin where the bee had alighted. For just one moment, she flashed a furious look at me and went to the inner room. I could not declare this act openly, as it would just be interpreted as another of my whims. I wanted to complete my writing. Friends, I'm not a great writer, nor do I have any fame, but I want to awaken you. Take notice of how insecure you are. A grave danger may lurk around you in the form of the bloodthirsty bees. How to face this hazard? I cannot tell you how. You have to find the solution on your own. The human race has disturbed the balance of nature out of selfishness. If the balance can be restored, nature may be kind to you. Friends, do not be inactive, thinking that this is the responsibility of other people and the society or the government. Try to plant, nurture, and grow shrubs, trees, creepers in and around your house, wherever and as many as possible. The killer bees will once again get attracted to flowering plants through their scent, color, and taste. The nature will once again be aroused to collect the nectar from the flowers to make honey. Nature is kind. May you be successful in all your efforts.